There is a definite need for our industry to make money outside of our direct one-on-one patient care time. If we're going to survive and we're going to thrive, we have to make money outside of the dollar for the minute model that we're currently racing around in that hamster wheel, and it's what's stressing everybody out. Kick it.
Welcome to Strata Stories. My name is Thomas Schreiber. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Strata PT. Strata PT is a single EMR platform and revenue cycle management service for physical, occupational, and speech therapy practices that helps you achieve a 99.99% reimbursement rate. On today's episode, Paul Singh, the CEO of Strata PT, talks with Justin Stiver, the owner of Total Therapy Florida. Justin grew the practice from 1 to now 7 clinics across Florida. Paul and Justin talk through how to make money outside of one-on-one patient care, the power of creating on YouTube, and the best strategy for attending PT conferences. If you'd like to learn more about Strata PT and see how our EMR and RCM works, head over to stratapt.com to book a demo. Now, without further delay, here's today's episode.
When you talk about the conferences, I went to PPS, I think maybe I skipped 1 year, but I went last year and I went 2 years before that. And let me say it this way. I don't go for the content, or I like to look around probably the exhibition hall for like 2 hours and see what's going on, just so I can, recognize faces and look at bigger products for that short period of time. I go to a few of the actual presentations that I really think might be great. And I usually, will learn one or two things. Most of it is stuff you already know, but it's stuff that it's nice to get reinforced every once in a while. But at the same time, you have to sift through a bunch of stuff that's probably not good but ultimately it's all about just meeting people. So 2 years ago at PPS, it might've been 3 years ago. It was the hotel lobby bar. The first night I got there, I saw this guy over there hanging by himself. So I walked over to him and I introduced myself, and he introduced himself. And he started asking me all the typical questions. Where are you from? What kind of practice do you have? Do you have any? And I asked him that as well. And he said, I got 39 PT practices up in the Boston area. And I was like, holy, and I think I just opened up my second or third practice. And I was like, how about I take you to dinner tonight? What are you doing? And I'll take you to this nice steakhouse in the hotel. And he's like, sure, yeah, let's do it. So went out to dinner with him, and I honestly picked his brain. I mean, he just opened book to me and gave me all kinds of advice. And at the end of the day, I got 99% of the benefit out of that conference from that dinner that happened the night before the conference even started. I think as long as you're going there with the mindset just to meet people and not thinking that the conference is going to change your life itself, it's just, I think the benefit is getting all those people in the same place at the same time.
Yeah. The question I was going to ask you was, when do you think it's right to start going to those things? But you just said it yourself. You went there, you had 2 or 3 practices at the time. So that makes sense. Out of curiosity, when you went to any of these conferences, when you had just one practice, was that still useful for you, you think?
Oh, yeah. I would say go to the conferences. I don't think there's anything wrong with going to the conference. I think it's time well spent. I don't know why they do these winter conferences in the north, though. That's the thing that pisses me off. Like Boston in February for freaking CSM. I was like, why am I in Boston right now? Like, I leave Florida the most beautiful time of the year, and I go up there to get snowed on with like 50-mile-an-hour winds ripping through the city. I'm like, this is miserable.
Oh, man.
I think they should do their conferences in Florida or Georgia or Texas or Phoenix or California.
Off the top of your head, what are the big ones you go to every year as a practice owner? So PPS, CSM, are there other ones you go to as well?
Those two are the real main ones. I'll go to the FPTA conference too, because it's just local, their own chapter here locally. But there are other conferences on my radar. But like I said, it doesn't really matter what conference you're going to. It's which ones are going to pull the most people in it. at the same place at the same time. Now, so if it's in California and we're busy, I won't go out there, but if it's locally Texas, up the East Coast, I'll definitely go. But I would say, I don't think it's a bad idea ever to go to these conferences as long as you're looking for the right information.
Yeah. Do you take staff with you too? Or do you just kind of go solo?
I take my business development team with me to PPS usually. And then I usually take at least one or two therapists with me to the CSM conference, because that's more like the PT focused conference. So last year I brought Mason, who I was talking about last time with you, and dude, he just loved it there, and I just let him go and told him how great it was, and he just and I sat in the hotel bar and drank beer with other practice owners and hardly went to any sessions, But I think I went to probably 2 sessions per day when you could go to probably 5 sessions, just because I don't get excited as much about the sessions unless there's a really great presenter that I'm, don't care as much about what he's saying, just that he's saying. And but
yeah, I think I couldn't agree with you more though. I mean, because it's so similar in a lot of other industries too, with like the tech world as well. It's like most of what the speakers are saying is Googleable. Yeah. The real value in the conference is actually just in the hallways and the collisions and the bars and all that. And so the interesting part, I think, also is a lot of people seem to try to tie ROI back to these things directly. And the problem is that, and I'm saying this assertively, and you can disagree with me, but the problem with it is that, like, if you look at it that way, you're never going to be happy because, did you get enough? I mean, it's one thing to break even, but did you get enough? Was it 3x, 5x, 10x? And what you kind of have to eventually embrace, I think, is that any one of those meetings could be the beginning of a 100x return. I met my one of my business partners for one of my personal businesses at a conference that I didn't pay any attention to, and I was down in Austin, and I was just crushing email, from the sidelines, just barely listening to anything. And it turns out he was too, and we were, and so it worked out. So yeah, same thing. It's like you just kind of have to go with the flow.
It's funny because you can spot out like the people who you want to talk to. You can spot out the ones that are walking around with their eyes wide open, and then you can see the ones that are kind of moseying around and eating lunch by themselves or with one other person, or and that they're practice owners and they're just kind of doing the same thing as you, and you go over and start talking to them. They introduce you to one or two people, and all of a sudden there's a party planned that night with one of the big sponsors, and then you end up going out there with them, and that's where the real meat and potatoes is found.
Yeah, because it's not like the deal gets done there anyway. It's really more like you're now texting with each other for the next couple of weeks, and maybe something interesting happens.
The worst part about a conference is the fact that every vendor in the exhibition hall will be emailing you for the next 6 months asking, but it's all good.
Yeah, it's like the game, right? It's like the conference game. Yeah, we I won't say too much so it doesn't make me we don't want too many enemies in the industry. But anyway, I agree. Yeah, the worst part of the conferences is all the phone calls you get afterwards.
I mean, it's funny because I think that you're on the right track with just doing something. I stay away from the big displays and the conferences that have, like, for example, X big company, and they have like 6 salespeople sitting around the outside perimeter of this big display, and if you make eye contact with them, they're pinning you in there. Hey, what do you use? What's your EMR? What's your revenue cycle? What do you do there? And let me show you, and I'll give you a free coffee. And it's like, ugh,
Yeah. I mean, I get why they do it, but yeah, it's not my speed. It's not our speed. I don't think, we're like I said to you in the pre-show, we're coming up with hopefully some creative stuff, whether it's at something like PPS or it's the trips we talked about. Let's go do something like that. But I think relationships, if you go in with the mindset that it's about like just making relationships, I think everything works itself out.
Successfully, if you do dinner with somebody you don't know every single night that you're there, and that's how I would measure ROI when it comes to, did I get what I paid for out of that conference. Is how many new people I got.
This is probably too much information, but my personal accountant for my business, or for my personal business, he or she. So we have one set of books. Let me just be very clear about that. But on the column names for the P&L, we have her official column names. It'll be like travel budget, right? And then the column right next to it is what Paul calls it. And so, for example, all the money that we spend on going to conferences or something like that, I have that all bucketed under what I call the serendipity fund.
Okay.
So it's just called the serendipity fund, and it's just kind of like that. We're not trying to be stupid with it, but I don't want any of that expenditure to be tied to like, it's not an expense that I think should be cut. I think you still need to have those collisions,
Well,
separately.
have you guys checked out our YouTube channel in the last week or two?
I did, but so this was actually one of the topics I wanted to talk to you about, is like talk to you about how that was going and what you wanted to, like if there's stuff you want to talk about there, but seems like it's coming along, man.
We broke 100,000 views on one video.
Right. Yeah. So I wasn't sure if you wanted to talk about that on the show, but now you brought it up. So let's talk about it. So why don't we, just in case somebody hasn't listened to a previous episode, let's talk about what you're doing high level and what is the YouTube channel?
So it's the Active Adult. And, I went into this without a lot of expectations, but I would say I had some hopes, I should say I have some hopes. But basically at worst, it's going to be fun. It's going to be an experiment, and I'm going to, learn something. Just getting in front of the camera and doing things like that is not easy if you've never done it before. And and you do develop yourself quite a bit, doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but really, I believe that as a physical therapy profession, that we're not reaching the patient soon enough, in their lives or the sales cycle, whatever you want to call it. But we're not getting to them soon enough. And I think the reason why is because a lot of our mindset as a profession, I'm just going to speak in general. I'm not saying everyone's like this, but we think of our intellectual property as some very protected item that is supposed to be kept in a safe. And unless someone pays us to be a private patient of ours, that we're not supposed to give them that intellectual property. And you can understand why people would feel that way for obvious reasons. But the biggest thing is that it's shooting ourselves in the foot, because now no one knows what we do and no one knows how to help them. And every other industry who's doing a better job of branding themselves as a solution to their problem, they're finding those people way before they're finding us. And PT in general has developed a reputation, where I'm at, as you go to a PT when you're sick or when you're hurt. You don't go there because you just want to improve your performance or your lifestyle, and this brand was kind of my way of fixing that on some small little microscopic scale,
Well, and the thing is, like, it's clearly providing value. So we'll put a link to it in the show notes here for anybody to be able to click through. But it's incredible to see the number of views. And actually, let me step back. I think one of the things that's important for people or other practice owners to kind of hear about your story there. I love how you talked about it at the beginning. You said, like, worst case scenario, it'd be fun and you learn something. And best, you described it that way. I think that's a really smart way to think about it. And I think a lot of people, practice owners and just entrepreneurs in general, always think about, like, oh gosh, what if it fails, or, and whatever. But the way you're thinking about it, I think, is really smart. Like, your downside scenario is effectively, you're no worse off than you were before you tried this. And in a best case scenario, some massive opportunity kind of appears. And when you average that out on a risk adjusted basis, it's better to try things like this. Now, in your case, when it's so interesting, at the time of us recording this thing, it's got, what is it? It looks like 5,600 subscribers.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. And I bet by the time this episode airs, it's going to be much higher than that. And then looking at some of these views on the videos, 137,000 views, 17,000 views, 1,000 views, 1,200 views, like, it's all about iterations. I mean, I think that you're picking that up here pretty quick. Is like, you don't, like, if we all knew what was going to go viral first, we'd just make that, right? But
Yeah,
nobody really
exactly.
knows that.
And still, I mean, it's fun. It's fun to try and figure out if you can try to figure out, I think what it does too is it makes you look at what's important to other people and not what's important to you. And that's not and a lot of practice owners that I've spoken to, including myself, that's something that we fight with, because when we're creating our brand, when we're marketing, when we're creating our marketing message, when we're treating our patients, even the way that we treat our patients, I think a trap that people can fall into is that we're trying to convince them of what we think they should want to receive,
Right.
versus when it comes to YouTube and the algorithm and the public, you're thinking about it. If you're smart, you're thinking about it the exact opposite way. You're saying, what out there do people want to hear and want to know? And with the lowest barriers of sales that I have to show them, what do they already want, and how can I give that to them? Because if you're trying to grow your channel, really, you'll find, like, at the time that we're doing this, there's a couple videos that I thought were really cool. Like, hey, I really think I could give someone a warm up to play pickleball and tennis and stuff. Well, that video's got like no views. And every video and the video that I actually thought was a little too generic, like, this is not going to be important to people, is the one that's got 130,000 views on it, or whatever, and I think it's been less than 3 weeks. Um, so I think that it really forces you to think about, what does my client or my customer want to see,
Yeah.
and then let me give that to them.
Well, the other thing, so I for anybody, just so people know, like, I've known you for a couple months now, I guess almost a year now, and I'm gonna say you're gonna have to stick with me for like 20 seconds, because there's a compliment buried in here. What's fascinating is that you can also see that as the videos kind of go out, you compare these videos to like some of the stuff you were working on, 6 months ago, 8 months ago, everything gets better. And it's just, it iteratively gets better. And I gotta believe, and now I'll say this assertively, and you can tell me if you disagree. I got to believe that also then kind of permeates in everything else that you do. So, for example, that idea you just talked about, like, hey, marketing's not about what you want; it's about what they want to hear about. Like, just that revelation. Like, I could tell you that all day, but that's one thing. But for you to then experience it for yourself, that's something entirely different. But now I imagine that changes everything about how you encourage your biz dev team to think about, building relationships, and how, like, the signage outside the building might change, or how, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong there.
Since this YouTube, this is one of those moments. I really do believe right now, this YouTube channel, regardless of if it's successful, like I think and hope it will be, I believe it's one of those things that has got my brain thinking differently. And there's been a few times since I've started my company, or before, what caused me to start the company and make, and actually take it in the direction that it has gone. There's been a few moments that I remember feeling this way, where I'm really sure about something, and now it's just, now I have to figure out how to make it work. But I'm sure that it's the right direction I'm supposed to be going, and that's how. And there's been a lot of little things that I would say most people probably don't think about, but even the consistency of our care of running a multi-clinic physical therapy practice. I can say things and do things on my YouTube videos that, when my team all watches these videos, they think it's hysterical. I think everyone wants, uh, but they hear me talking about certain things, and I've already noticed, just being in the clinics, watching them, I've noticed that the message has become a little bit more consistent, which is something that, as multiple practice owner, you have to be careful of. You don't want it's okay to have some variability and some difference in styles and stuff like that. But one of the issues that we've run into is, this clinic doesn't do things the same way as this clinic, and the physician likes the way this one does it, not the way that one does it. And it just kind of makes a big mess for you. So you have to have some degree of consistency. And And this is actually one of those things that has helped, and I think it will continue helping as we grow.
Yeah, yeah. The have you guys, and if we're going down a path where you don't want to talk about it yet, we can just say that, and we won't put it in the show. But so these videos are obviously on YouTube, and they're doing very, very well. From a marketing standpoint, when you think about your practices and stuff like that, have you guys started to then integrate some of these videos into your email campaigns or your drip campaigns, or is that still kind of a down the road thing?
I've sent out a few emails kind of introducing it, almost like, and we plan on continuing that path. We've put posters in each clinic now where they can scan a QR code and get on a YouTube channel. And we're actually installing TVs in the clinic. So we're going to play all these videos on a little loop and kind of get patients into it. The other thing that we've done, which is remain to be seen whether or not it's going to be worth keeping or not, but we have a private Facebook group now called the Active Adult as well. And we have dripped emails out to get people to subscribe to that group as well. And what we plan on doing there is more of a local type of thing, definitely. But, getting big, having an actual forum where our patients can interact with each other and talk about their issues, and I have it moderated by all the clinic directors of our team, and it's kind of fun. You have a bunch of people. I think we're up to maybe 500 or 600 members of that Facebook group.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. What, like if there was another practice owner sitting here right now and they were like, Justin, man, how do I get started with this? I mean, obviously the easy answer is point your phone at your face and start talking. But at a high level today, mid 2024, what does your content team look like? Is it obviously you're speaking, somebody's holding a camera maybe? Like what is your
I have one person I hired that I'm really happy with. He had YouTube experience. He has his own YouTube channel doing something completely different, and editing experience. And right now it's just me and him.
I love that, by the way, because I want people to understand that it doesn't take huge content teams to make this, right? Like they're probably thinking like, gosh, Mr. Beast with like 70 people or, whatever. But for most of us, it's us.
We put out what I think is high quality content for our competition out there. And so that being said, we have someone that works 30 to 40 hours per week. He does all the editing, all the videography, and he does a lot of other stuff for the business. Now that I have him, he does a lot of my Facebook ad stuff, and he's actually updating all my website stuff. He's just a very knowledgeable guy. So I'm using him outside of the scope of the Active Adult as well for the business. But that's about 30 to 40 hours per week. And to get started, we bought a couple cameras. We probably spent about $5,000 or $6,000 on equipment with lighting and stuff like that we can set up and break down. So it's not a huge investment.
Attainable.
Yeah.
It's attainable. Absolutely. Too, because I just think a lot of people just are like, oh man, this just seems hard and I'm going to need like a lot of people or whatever. And the truth is that it's not all that much. I remember when I was first learning about the importance of video and content creation, I guess now 15 or so years ago, I couldn't afford somebody full-time at the time. So I ended up going to, at the time I was living in Mountain View, California, and Stanford University was over there or is over there. And they have a design school, like an art program. They had a video program there. And I went over to that program. I was like, hey, can I put a job ad out here for any of the students? And I met a really great guy who, I think we agreed to spend a total of $20,000 over the course of 12 months, but that would be like 10 videos, 10 very short, like 1-minute videos. This is like 2010. None of us knew what we were doing. And it was probably the best money we ever spent. I mean, we still reference those videos for that business 15 years later. But it's part of the DNA now. But
that's awesome.
And then don't get me started on AI too, because I think AI and what it's going to do to marketing and stuff like that. I think the reality is that personal development in terms of speaking and articulation and just showmanship and all that, like those are the things that AI isn't going to like destroy. And at the end of the day, particularly with PT, they still are going to have a human touch them. And so that's where one of the big opportunities here is to really start thinking about content as not only a way to acquire new patients, but also as a way for like each of your soft skills to grow, you know. And I'm not talking to you because you already figured it out, but I don't think a lot of people realize this.
And the thing is too, you don't have to spend nearly what we spent to do it either. I mean, I laugh with my guy all the time when we're watching. We do a lot of research on other channels and other videos that have been successful, and like some of them are so bad. I mean, some of them are so poor quality. They're good videos, obviously, because they're very successful, and a lot of times the person speaking is very good, but the video quality doesn't have to be great. I mean, and honestly, like if it's too good, I've also talked to them about like, hey, let's not make this too good, because when looks too good, then it's got more of a sales, or some kind of vibe to it that we don't want. We want that bootstrap vibe to it. And
there's actually research on that proves that. So you're right. There's absolutely proof on that. Actually, I'm just a nerd. I'm not a nerd enough to like win at Jeopardy, but nerdy enough that my wife points it out every day. But like even when you watch movies like I don't know, you guys are making fun of me, but like Battlestar Galactica, I love that the new one that was on new like 10 years ago, not the one 50 years ago. But if you ever watch that show, it was one of the first shows where the camera gimbal moved. And so like the whole idea there was that the director, the producers there, they wanted it to not only feel like you were watching from your own eye, because like our heads bobble, but like it felt more raw and the characters felt more real because of that little minor thing. And conversely, now, like we talk about business, by the way, like I always kind of joke that, if I ever have to interview like a web designer, the first thing I ask them is like, and gosh, we're going to be recruiting for this role here. So now they're going to know. But whenever I recruit for a web designer, I'm like, hey, what's your favorite airline? And then they'll tell me, and I'm like, okay, what would you change about their website? And then like 99% of them will be like, oh, well, this sucks, that sucks, and this, da, da, da. And the right answer is probably nothing. Because those websites are really, really good at extracting money. And, even when you like search, like for example, in United Airlines, when you search and then it like has that little spinner, there's research behind that. They're artificially delaying how long it takes for the page to load, because if the results come back too fast, most people are skeptical. They're like, oh, I should probably price shop this somewhere else. But they'll have a spinner that sits there for like 4 seconds. It says like, checking this, checking that, nothing's happening. But anyway, I'm just reinforcing the fact that you're right, that like you don't need like the $40,000 red camera, hell, these iPhones are probably good enough now just to start.
And honestly, you have to ask yourself what technology, or what am I spending money on, and make sure it's something that's going to make your time less. So instead of buying this camera that's hard to train, and this is outside of my scope, but I've been pushing my guys like, okay, is spending this money going to make your life easier? Is it going to make you be able to edit more video in the time that you have? It's not necessarily the quality, but it's does it fit your workflow good? Because that's more important. Why are we doing this and spending, like, is it worth color correcting, or do we just go with maybe it's not perfect and spend a lot less time, and that's the kind of thing.
I know you can't predict the future, but like where do you go with active adult? Like where does it go from here?
I have a master plan that I'm not going to talk about, but
yes,
because it's so far down the road. But I think something that you told me a few months ago is, get enough eyeballs on your stuff, there's going to be ways to make money off of it later. That ultimately, that's our goal for the next couple of years, is to just get as many eyeballs to our content as we possibly can. And in the meantime, try and really figure out and get a good pulse on what's important to these people watching our stuff, because that's the decisions that you're going to use later on if you do, want to make money off of your audience. And so, yes, I definitely, there's a bunch of different ways I've already thought about how I'm going to monetize our audience, whether it's through YouTube or through other venues. But
Yeah.
and I think that there is a definite need for our industry to make money outside of our direct one-on-one patient care time too. If we're going to survive and we're going to thrive, we have to make money outside of the dollar for the minute model that we're currently racing around in that hamster wheel, and it's what's stressing everybody
Right.
out.
I think a lot of people won't like to hear this, but I think the reality is that more practice owners need to start thinking of themselves as media companies that happen to deliver PT. And it's a hard pill to swallow, because if your whole career you've just thought about, the value of your degree and the value of your care, this is going to feel like it's devaluing that. And that's not the intent. The intent with these kinds of ideas is that it's the world's crowded, the world's noisy, and ultimately the average patient doesn't know how to pick between PT number 1 and PT number 2. And certainly proximity matters, but beyond that, like their ability to have connected with you is important. I mean, I think this is like super fascinating. And I think, just to kind of clarify for anybody listening, like that comment about like get eyeballs and then you'll figure out the rest later. I think content is one of those things. Most people, if I said to you, what is an asset? Like picture an asset in your head. Most people would picture a house, or like a business or something like that. And that, I get that. But the truth is that, like, when we talk about leverage, actually, let's get more philosophical. What is luck? People are like, oh, that guy got lucky. Justin got lucky. He got lucky. He met that one guy at the conference that you talked about. That's not luck. That, like, I call it opportunity surface area. So like the best way to describe this is like, if you just stay in your basement 100% of the time, there's very little chance for lucky things to happen to you. Conversely, you put yourself out there. The more and more you put yourself out there, whether it's going to conferences, making YouTube videos, spinning signs on the corner street, the more and more you put yourself out there, I describe it as like this, like surface area, like a sphere, like the surface area gets bigger and bigger. And the more you put yourself out there, luck has a better ability to strike. And luck really is not, I don't know, it's not like you didn't know that guy was going to be a lucky dinner. It was just that you put yourself out there, you said hello, and it could have gone bad too. It could have gone boring, but it worked out. The point is that you got to put yourself out there. And this is like a good example of that.
Exactly. And I mean, I think that you learn, like we said earlier, you learn as much about yourself as putting yourself out there makes you learn about yourself, and making yourself feel uncomfortable. It really, I learned more about myself in the last month or two than I have in the last whole year or two. So I definitely think outside of your comfort zone is the place you want to spend most of your time.
Well, that's it. If it's uncomfortable, it probably means you should be spending time on it.
Right. Exactly.
Well, I didn't realize we were going to talk about marketing practices today, but this has actually turned out to be really, really interesting. We've talked about conferences, YouTube. Out of curiosity, are you guys distributing this anywhere else right now? Like, are there other platforms you guys are testing out, whether it's making up TikTok, Instagram?
No, but that's what I was just going to say is now that I think our concept is proven, I think what we're able to make the content, we're able to edit it, and we're able to prove that people actually do care about it. Then now we're going to start. Now also, what kind of works there is my guy Nate is spending a lot less time per video now, because he's got all the templates built in his editing software. I take a lot less time now to shoot the content because I'm not messing up as much. I'm feeling a lot more comfortable. Now he sends me over the first cut of a video, and like, I think the last 3 or 4 videos, maybe I had one little tweak on something that he didn't know because it was a body part or a muscle that he put the wrong label on or something. But like, he nails it now for me. So the content is great. It's exactly what I'm looking for in a lot less time. So now that his time is freed up a little bit, now we're able to start to look at other things, you know, other avenues. With our audience being over 65, we're probably going to start off with Facebook. Um, but you can open yourself into Instagram or TikTok and everything else. And you already have the content made. So
That's it, right? I was just going to say, you have the content.
or something like that, but it's minutes compared to hours to post things in multiple places. So yeah, it's great.
I love it, man, because I go back to like maybe one of the first dinners I had with you almost a year ago. I just love to see how far you've come with your sort of embrace of distribution. It's something we talk about a lot on the marketing side of our business and just, tech businesses in general. But it's super cool to see you and how far you've come. I don't even think it's been a year actually. Maybe it's a year now, but that's super neat.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Strata Stories. Strata PT is a single EMR platform and revenue cycle management service for physical, occupational, and speech therapy practices that helps you achieve a 99.99% reimbursement rate. If you'd like to learn more about Strata PT and see how our EMR and RCM works, head over to stratapt.com to book a demo.